Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Spotlight. I am Alex Robertson. I am back this week sitting in for John Arezzi, who is not only traveling, but if I'm not mistaken, he's actually doing a book signing today, which is amazing. His book is selling very, very well. I'm very happy for him. I actually got the book last week in the mail, signed and everything, so I'm very excited to read it. But of course, I couldn't do that this week because what a week we've been having. It's been such a crazy week because it's Mania week. I have been watching so much wrestling, so much more wrestling than I think I've ever watched ever. And it's actually only about to get that much better. If you're a journalist, that is. So what I learned this week is that every single day of the week from Monday to Friday, I'm going to have a second full-time job because I'm going to have to watch wrestling every single day. But I'm not complaining about that. Anyway, I'm very happy to be with you guys this week, especially this weekend because it's WrestleMania. And I'm very, very, very excited to go over some stuff that happened this week. And I'm also going to bring on one of my Slam contributors who actually covers NXT. And we're going to go over some stuff that happened in the Stand and Deliver Takeover, which I absolutely loved. And then we're going to go over some stuff that's going to happen tonight and tomorrow night. So yeah, WrestleMania 2 nights again this year. But if I had to guess, I think it's going to be a little bit different this year. But we're going to get into that. So as always, I'm going to start with the news, considering that's my segment and everything. So a lot of stuff that's been going on this week is obviously related to WrestleMania, but I wanted to talk about one thing that's not necessarily related to the WWE, and I was kind of puzzled by this. For all of you that follow Impact, which I certainly do, is it just me or did anybody find it kind of weird that they had a pay-per-view today at 2 p.m.? Like I said, I love Impact. I love the content and I love all of the storylines that they put out. But I find it very strange that you choose to put a pay-per-view the same week or weekend, I should say, as WrestleMania at 2 p.m. Now, granted, it's way before WrestleMania where the kickoff show even starts. So that's fine. But I found it kind of strange that you choose to do it on this particular day. I mean, it could have been scheduled further in advance. Like we didn't know what was going to happen with WrestleMania this year because of the pandemic. So that could have very well been a factor. I just find that's very, very strange. But anyway, and I just want to say hi to everybody who is on the chat right now. Hi to everybody who's joining me. I'm very, very happy that you're joining us. And of course, if you have any WrestleMania predictions or any thoughts in general, because this is a very different kind of WrestleMania than we've seen apart from last year, many, many years. So if you have any thoughts, predictions, please let me know. So now we're going to get into some of the WrestleMania content. And I'm sorry if I'm overloading everybody, but it is what it is this week. So obviously, we had the WrestleMania Hall of Fame, or the Hall of Fame this week, which was actually filmed last week, if I'm not mistaken. And they did 2020 on one day and 2021 on the other day. And I watched them last night because, of course, I had to watch all of this wrestling all week. I decided to leave the Hall of Fames till the end of the week. And although they were very different, I enjoyed them. I thought the speeches were a little short, but I did enjoy them. And of course, I did enjoy 2020s because my girls, Nikki and Brie Bella, did get inducted. Very, very happy to see that. And I think they're the whole reason, as I've told most of you, why I got into wrestling. So very happy to see that, quote unquote, I guess, trailblazers for their time got inducted. But I think some people may have noticed, at least in the 2021 Hall of Fame, it was a bit of a mess up, just a little bit. The WWE has decided to induct legacies this year into the class of 2021. And when they were they show all of the legacies in their prime and kind of tell their story a little bit. And at first, when I heard who was going to be inducted, some of them were Dick the Bruiser, Buzz Sawyer, Paul Bosch, and of course, Ethel Johnson, who was, if I'm not mistaken, one of the first African-American female wrestler that ever was. And I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but a bunch of people picked it up. They actually showed the wrong footage of Ethel Johnson, and they actually showed Sandy Parker. Now, WWE, you had one job to show the right footage, and you didn't. I don't know how they thought they were going to kind of sweep that one under the rug, but so many people noticed it, and they were offended by it, and I don't blame them. I mean, Ethel Johnson was a huge trailblazer for women, especially African-American women. Why not show the right footage? I don't understand that. But anyway, a lot of people picked that up, and I noticed that, especially on Twitter, that was really everywhere this week. And another thing that I thought the WWE did, which was kind of weird, this whole thing over the last couple of months where Vince McMahon has come out and said, you're not allowed to use third parties, you're not allowed to use Cameo or Patreon or anything. And as we know, Selena Vega is no longer with the WWE because she refused to follow that rule, obviously. And I noticed that when they were doing, the WWE was doing a bunch of advertising this week, they were showing this ad for Cameo. And the tweet reads, WWE and Cameo are teaming up for a special WrestleMania offer. And then they list a bunch of superstars, including Daniel Bryan, Alexa Bliss, and Seth Rollins, and many more that you can book on Cameo. Is it just me, or does that not make any sense? If you're going to allow them to use Cameo for WrestleMania under the WWE logo, why not let them use it on their personal accounts? I mean, John and I have had this debate, and we kind of both agree that it would only make WWE's product and brand better if the superstars used it on their own anyway, because if people recognize who they are and the ones that are going to spend money on this are clearly fans of the product, so that would really only make any sense. I don't get it. But nonetheless, I thought that was kind of funny this week, because after everything that we've been hearing with all this third-party stuff, they kind of swept it under the rug and then brought it back WrestleMania week and tried to kind of bypass all that. Super, super strange. But nonetheless, that's out there. So if anybody wants to talk to a favorite superstar that they have, you can now book them on Cameo. But I'm warning you, it's probably going to be pretty expensive, because I had a friend not that long ago who wanted to book a Cameo with Alexa Bliss before all this third-party nonsense started. And it was like $250 per booking, which is a crazy amount of money. So, I mean, I wouldn't do it, but if you guys want to do it, by all means. Somebody on the chat is writing, it's all about WWE getting more cash from Cameo, I think. Definitely. That's definitely it. But if you're going to do that, then why not allow your superstars to do it? You can allow them to do it and then say, like they do with everything else, especially their merch, we will sell your merch for you, but we're going to take a cut of it. Why not do that? I feel like then everybody wins. A small cut, though, not the whole thing. So yeah, anyway, that was very strange this week. And of course, we are now hearing many reports about future pay-per-views that are going to come after this. And I heard this week that Money in the Bank event will take place on May 16th, so next month. And Backlash will be on June 20th. So we've got 2 pay-per-views already set up following WrestleMania. And I think Money in the Bank is one that everyone's always really excited about. And even last year, they kind of were very creative with it, very similarly to what they did with WrestleMania, with a bunch of promos and filming segments. And of course, it was after the Money in the Bank pay-per-view that we found out that Becky Lynch was leaving because she was with child. So I don't know. It's always one that's very memorable, and it's always one that's very fun. That's when the hardcore wrestlers tend to come out and really show us what they can do. So very interested to see what's going to happen there. And they're also saying, there's also many reports telling us that both shows are going to be held in the Thunderdome, unsurprisingly. So that's not really anything shocking there, I guess. They're looking to move it though. They're trying to move the events from what I'm understanding, but there's no confirmed place. So I guess we'll see. And then one thing that I thought was actually kind of disappointing, and I saw this yesterday, it obviously comes very late after, in WrestleMania week. I don't know about any of you, but I like how in a lot of the pay-per-views, especially WrestleMania, there's so many commentators that represent the different cultures and the different countries. And I always like seeing them. And I like seeing all of these countries and cultures represented. I think that's great. And of course, I'm from Quebec. So I personally, and one of the only ones I can understand, mind you, are the French commentators. And I always love seeing, Jean Brassard and the Rougeaus were doing it for a little while. So that was always really fun for me. And I know when I would sit around the TV watching WrestleMania in the past with my friends and my family, we would always laugh about, how those are really the only ones that we can understand. And Jean Brassard, that I follow on social media, he sent out a post this week, and it read, "Very dear friends, it's with a heavy heart that I have to announce that due to the restructuring because of Peacock, the network, Raymond and I will no longer be a part of the WWE's commentator teams starting today. So indeed, I won't be with you for WrestleMania this weekend. For France, they are announcing a new team that will take their place. For Quebec and European countries, I don't know. On Peacock USA, it's only the English and the Spanish commentary team that will remain." And I think that's kind of disappointing. It seems that the more and more we're learning about Peacock, the more and more we're learning about how limited it is and how they're really censoring things. I mean, that means that if you're going to start censoring things, you're going to need to censor the entire Attitude Era. Sorry to disappoint, guys. It's going to get censored. And I don't know if you guys have watched some of the stuff that's been brought over from Peacock. But again, like I keep telling you guys every week, more and more people are noticing that things are getting phased out. A lot of Roddy Piper's segments are getting phased out because of the racial intentions that were in there. And it was actually this week that we found out there was a segment on Raw back in the day with Dustin Rhodes, Dusty's son, and he had black paint on his face. And because that can be interpreted as blackface, they removed it. Now, a lot of people were finding that very controversial. And I mean, I can't blame them for removing that. Honestly, we've had issues like that in our country with our own prime minister. So I get that. There are certain things that we're going to see like that are going to have to be removed. But in terms of, the swearing and the sexualization, that's basically all the Attitude Era, and that's part of the reason why, I didn't like the Attitude Era, because of the sexualization of women. So does that mean that they're going to remove all of that, or they're just going to start removing segments? I don't know. Again, like every week, I will try and keep you guys up to date as best as possible, but I would not be surprised if that were the case, just to warn you. For everybody in Canada, however, you can still watch WrestleMania on the network, and that's what I've been doing, and everything is still there, everything. So it looks like it's just the content on Peacock that they're kind of looking at. Dan Brown says, "From what I've seen, Peacock seems to be only censoring stuff related to blackface or anything offensive to African Americans. Violent matches are still intact, yes, as well as some people's comments that insult other races like Asian people." Yeah, you see that needs to probably be removed too. I mean, that if you're going to take away all of the racialized stuff, don't just do it to one culture. Just take it away for everybody. I think that's just the best way to go about things, because then they can get into a whole bunch of trouble, and nobody needs that. So moving on from Peacock and their troubles, we got some good news this week, which is actually kind of related to John. The third season of Vice's Dark Side of the Ring is going to debut on Thursday, May 6th. So less than a month. And there's trailers that have been released that hint about some of the episodes. There's going to be 14 episodes. That's a decent amount. some of the people we're going to see are people like Brian Pillman, Nick Cage, The Collision in Korea, The Ultimate Warrior, Grizzly Smith, Dynamite Kid. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I don't know. I know whenever we've talked about Dark Side of the Ring, I think it's one of the best produced documentary series that I've seen, just generally speaking, not even just on wrestling. I think generally speaking, it's been quite something to watch. So very excited about that. And somebody was asking me on the chat here, do I watch NXT UK? So I'm going to be very transparent here. I don't always watch it live. I don't always keep up with it every week, but there's a reason for that. And it's the same reason why I can't always watch NXT USA. And that is because of when it's filmed or when it's live here, and also the kind of channel that it's on here. Very much like NXT UK or USA, I should say. I can't watch it here because it's on the USA Network. So I can't even watch it the week of. I have to wait about a week so I can watch it on the network. I try my best to follow everything. But as you guys know, and as I think you guys can understand, as a wrestling journalist, I have to watch a lot of wrestling. And sometimes with my crazy work schedule or something big that happens, I have to prioritize certain things. And that is something that doesn't always get prioritized, which is unfortunate because I think that they do have a very good product over there. And we're going to get into that because one of the NXT UK members did appear on NXT Stand and Deliver this week. Now, before I bring on my guest, who is also, like I said, a contributor at Slam Wrestling, I want to know what you guys thought if you watched NXT Takeover this week. I want to know what you guys thought about it. I love the NXT product. There are times where I actually think that NXT and the kind of storylines that they have are better than what we see on Raw and SmackDown. I don't know if that's necessarily because I've been watching Raw and SmackDown so much that I'm kind of bored of it. But I just find that the storylines, the talent, the kind of matches, everything kind of put together, it sings for me. And I also love the commentary team that they have at NXT. I think that Vic Joseph, Wade Barrett, who was there this week as well, and Beth Phoenix, I think that they're great. So everything all together, I think they're a great production. So that's what I thought. And I'm going to tell you more. But before I do, I'm going to bring on Matt McFarlin. He is a contributor with Slam Wrestling who covers NXT for our lovely publication. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Alex. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great.
Great. So before I start off, I want to know what have your thoughts been leading up to the Stand and Deliver shows that we saw this week on NXT?
Leading up to those shows, I think NXT's been doing pretty good. As you said, almost better than Raw and SmackDown. The storylines have been great. The matches have been pretty good. I think the highlight of these shows is Finn Balor, probably, maybe the Undisputed Era split. A lot of interesting things going on in NXT.
Definitely. And I think because the shows have been so good, I think anybody who watches it, either, like you and I do as journalists or as fans, you kind of set an expectation for what you want to happen. So what were some of your expectations going into this pay-per-view?
NXT, they always deliver. You can always count on them to have great matches, and I think that's exactly what they did. A lot of maybe match of the year contenders there over both nights. So you can always count on NXT to have great matches.
Definitely. And I'm seeing some people on the text line talking about Walter and that Walter is a monster. I swear every time, look, when I first saw him, I was amazed. And I've seen him live in person wrestle, and I think he's just incredible. And obviously he comes from the NXT UK brand. So what do you think, what kind of added value do you think he brings to the USA side?
You know, Walter, he's unlike anyone else in wrestling right now. I think he has an aura that nobody else has. Just like Walter, his entrance, his demeanor, he's always having good matches. Can't beat Walter. So if he's on NXT US, it's always going to be a plus.
Definitely. And, he's been champ now for over 700 days. That's incredible. So I think that makes him the longest reigning champion, at least to my knowledge. So is there anybody that can really beat him, do you think?
That question comes up a lot online, but in my opinion, I don't think in the near future he should drop it. I mean, Walter is above anyone else, and who knows, he could have one of those Bruno reigns if they want him to. I think he could do it if he wanted.
Absolutely. I think that's spot on. And another match that I thought was on the first night that I thought was standout, and one guy that I thought was standout actually was Bronson Reed. And that's not necessarily because of his size, but just the way that he moves in the ring and the presence that he had in that match, in that gauntlet match. Was he your favorite? Who was your favorite? Because he was definitely my favorite to win that match. And I want to know what you thought.
Oh yeah, Bronson Reed, obviously the big man, but very agile. I think a lot of people compare him to a Bam Bam Bigelow or a Vader maybe. So he really stands apart from the rest of the guys. He had a good showing on night one. And then later on, we'll talk about night two, but he had a great match with Johnny Gargano on there as well. So he mixes well with that roster very nicely.
Definitely. And going into that match, I thought, with the size and the power that he brings, for sure, he was going to be a contender to win that match. And then eventually when he did, I found myself cheering for him, and then going up against Johnny Gargano, who is a staple in the NXT USA brand in his own right. And I'm thinking to myself, is he really going to drop the title to somebody like Bronson Reed? Now, he did not. Did anybody really think that Johnny was going to drop the title? Was that really something that you thought would happen?
Yeah, I think a lot of people did. I saw in our slam predictions, I think John Powell thought pretty strongly that Bronson Reed would win. Johnny Gargano, you can always count on him too. He's Mr. Takeover. I don't think he ever has bad matches, with anyone, with a Bronson Reed or smaller guys like an Adam Cole, always has good matches. So, if he's the champion, then, that's fine.
Definitely. And another match on night one, that was the main event, actually, that was fantastic, was the women's match, Raquel Gonzalez versus Io Shirai. And, somebody like Io Shirai, when I saw her win that title, I thought that was well-deserved. And she had held the belt for over 300 days, so that's a pretty long title run for somebody today. And she's been in good company with other women who have held the NXT women's title, who are now on the main roster, right? Somebody like Asuka, somebody like Shayna Baszler. So now Raquel Gonzalez not only is the NXT women's champion, but she's one half of the tag team champions at NXT. So what kind of, expectation does she have to live up to now?
I should say that tag team champions at NXT are Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon. Yes, but Raquel, I think she's one of the best ones there already in the women's division in NXT. Her size, but her agility and the way she works. But she is still fairly new, so there's going to be a lot of expectations surrounding her reign. But I think she has all the tools to do it. And a lot of people are supporting her, and a lot of people behind her.
Definitely. And now that you do have a point there. I think when it comes to title reigns, I think it's fair to say that nowadays the title reigns are very short on all three brands. They don't hold the titles for that long anymore. So something like 300 days, or like Walter, who's had it for 700 days, is incredible. And I personally didn't think that Raquel Gonzalez was going to beat Io Shirai for the title, because like you, I thought she was very new, and I thought she still has some time, to develop her character and really become a star in her own right. good for her for getting this title shot. And I think she put on a great show, but I think now she really has to prove herself. And I think a lot of the fans are behind her, but in order for her to keep the title, she's really going to have to prove that she is at the forefront of that women's division. So how tough do you think it is for somebody who's so new like that? How tough do you think it is to have to prove yourself that you really are at the top of the mountain?
You talk about Io Shirai. She was the woman that really carried NXT throughout this, Wednesday weekly scheduling. Now that they're on Tuesdays now, that puts, all the more pressure on Raquel to really carry that show on the Tuesdays. But, I think she's going to do all right. Raquel, especially with the NXT women's division there, you always have, so many great women's wrestlers like Candice LeRae or the new one, Zoe Stark. Just the matches that they're going to have alone is going to really do it for her.
Definitely. Well, she's definitely going to have some stiff competition. I think that the NXT women's division is on fire. I think it always has been. And the additions that they've made within the last year have been incredible. So, I mean, it's only a matter of time before we see another great women's match. But going back to the men's side, the main event that we saw on night 2 of Stand and Deliver, the unsanctioned match between Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. I am all about unsanctioned match. I love them. I work for a company here in Montreal that's all they do are hardcore crazy matches like this. So I live for this kind of stuff. Did you see it going that far? Like they took it pretty far, I think. Did you see it really going that far in terms of the weapons and stuff that they used?
With Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole, they're, very storied rivalry there. So a lot of matches. So they're always going to have to one up the past one. But it's a very personal rivalry. And it was going to be very violent. It was going to be a lot of weapons, but they did a great job. You have a lot of unsanctioned or no rule matches a lot in wrestling nowadays. But, this one I think really stood above because not only did they have those weapons, but they really told a good story too. With the brainbuster spot that they did before, leading up to that, it was just a great match overall. They did a wonderful job.
I thought so too. And, we did see in the beginning, for anybody who maybe doesn't follow NXT, I think, you do know that those two had been friends from the beginning. And at the end of the match, you could see that Kyle O'Reilly was looking back at Adam Cole in the ring, who was clearly injured or something. And you can see that maybe he felt a little bad, maybe he didn't, I don't know. But do you see them kind of getting back together and remaining friends? Do you think this is the real separation and they go off into their singles careers like for good?
I think there's a lot of potential in Kyle O'Reilly himself as a singles wrestler. They had Undisputed Era had a really good run, 3 years on top. I don't think they need to do any more with the Undisputed Era. I think Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly by themselves has a lot of potential in NXT as singles guys that you could really build around.
Definitely. Absolutely. I agree. And last thing before we move on to the big show of the weekend, we found out this week that NXT is now moving to Tuesdays, which, as I said at the beginning of the show, is going to cause all of us to watch wrestling every single day of the week now. So what do you think about the move to Tuesdays?
It's good for me because I am the NXT guy from slamwrestling.net, but I do watch AEW as well. So that means after I write about NXT, I do have to watch AEW since I like it so much. That means I stay up until like maybe 12 or 12:30. So for me personally, it's a good move for me. I get to watch wrestling, as you said, every week. So for wrestling fans alike, it's going to be a good time. It's a good move for NXT to go to Tuesdays.
I think so too. And I think it came at a good time because Impact also announced that they're moving to Thursdays, which they did this week. So I think now it just allows more visibility for each brand. I don't know how that's necessarily going to affect the ratings, but I know for this week, especially with having Stand and Deliver on a Wednesday, I was looking at the ratings between them and AEW because, of course, we're still in this so-called Wednesday night wars, and they weren't that, well, they were a little bit surprising. They were still decently high, but between the two of them, I think there was less than 100,000 views in difference, which is a little bit surprising to me. I would have thought that NXT would have come out on top, especially it being a pay-per-view. And normally when anything is attached to a pay-per-view, it usually tends to draw more eyes. So I was a little bit surprised there. But what do you think about that? Like, do you think that the ratings should have been higher? I think they were something close to 700,000 for NXT. Did you expect them to be that, or did you expect them to be a little bit higher?
It's a little bit odd. Recently, I think last month, ratings have been around 700,000. And, with the Tuesday move, it looks like it could be, maybe 100,000 plus more. But I think ratings in general, maybe it's because of, the pandemic situation, the atmosphere is not the same. Maybe people are just not watching because of that.
Definitely. And is out of everything that we discussed from both Stand and Deliver, is there anything else that kind of stood out to you that you're going to monitor going forward in terms of storylines?
The new NXT champion, Karrion Kross, defeated Finn Balor. This is now his second reign. Finn Balor, I thought he had a great reign. A lot of match of the year matches, like with Kyle O'Reilly, Pete Dunne, Adam Cole. But changing of the guards for Karrion Kross. But I've seen some mixed reactions there. Somebody on Square Circle Reddit said Karrion Kross is the second most boring NXT champion, right behind number one, Karrion Kross. So it might be it's gonna be different without seeing Finn Balor on top, but we'll see what happens with Karrion Kross as the NXT champion.
Definitely. I think that, when they made the move to bringing Finn Balor back to NXT, a lot of people were saying in the beginning, like, it's a step down, because for a long time it was always NXT is the third brand, but it's kind of like the minor leagues, if you will, which I don't necessarily see it that way anymore. If you look at it from an analysis point of view anyway, I think, as I said, NXT does produce better shows, but I think, I think it is going to be different not having Finn Balor, and we'll see where he goes next. I mean, what kind of storyline he'll go into next, but I definitely think that he's going to stay there, and I think it's important that he stays there for sure.
For sure, yeah.
So now we're going to get into night one of WrestleMania, which the kickoff show should start in about 30 minutes from now, and the actual show kicks off at 8 p.m. Eastern. So there's going to be 7 matches tonight, which is a pretty lengthy card. 7 matches tonight, 7 matches tomorrow, which I'm guessing is going to be about 3 hours long. What are some of the matches that you're looking forward to on night one?
Night one, I think the big headline match is Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley. I believe it is going on first, and that is a big deal because for the first time in a long time, there's going to be a big crowd there. It might be 25,000 or so. And Drew McIntyre is somebody who's really carried the Raw brand, at least, on his back for the past year. He's going to be getting that deserved big crowd reaction that we've been missing for so long. It's going to be a good match against Bobby Lashley. We'll see what happens in that first match.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I'm biased. I love Drew McIntyre. I was over the moon when he won last year, and I was very disappointed that, at least for him anyway, that he didn't get to win that championship with a crowd in front of him. So now I'm thinking, now is their chance, right? Now is their chance to give him back that belt and that gratification, I guess, of winning the belt in front of a crowd. So my guess is that that's what's going to happen. I don't necessarily see Bobby Lashley winning this match. I think that Drew McIntyre is a better carrier for that championship. But like you said, we'll see. I mean, either way, I think it's a great way to start off the show, nonetheless. And one match too that I think everybody is looking forward to is the last match, or what is supposed to be the last match, the main event of tonight, which is Sasha Banks, who is the WWE Women's Champion on SmackDown, and Bianca Belair, who won the Royal Rumble. And I find this interesting because I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time that we've seen 2 African-American ladies compete for this title. So what do you think about these two, and who do you think is going to come out on top here?
That headline's a really big deal. Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks have a very big fan base and they're very inspirational to a lot of people. They're very similar in a lot of ways. Both good wrestlers who very well could main event WrestleMania in a good way. But I think it's time for Bianca Belair to stand above. It's going to be like a passing the torch almost from Sasha to Bianca Belair.
Definitely. And I think, there was no question that in that Royal Rumble, she definitely stood out to me 100% as the top contender. And even the year before, she was in it for a long time. So it would only make sense that, as you say, they would pass the torch. So that definitely is going to be a very, very fun main event to watch. I just want to address two comments that we're getting on the chat here. Steve says that I live in Tampa and the weather is pretty poor, very rainy and damp in the mid 70s. Eek, that doesn't look good for the first time that we're going to have some crowd in the audience there. I'm hoping it clears up, because that's definitely going to ruin the plans a little bit. And something else,
ironic, moving from the Thunderdome to a thunderstorm.
There you go, right? Irony at its best. And somebody else is asking, are there any matches on the kickoff show? I don't know if you've heard anything, Matt, but I know from what I've seen this week, the kickoff show is not supposed to have any matches. I don't know if there's anything different. No, I didn't think so. And I think, one of the matches that is usually on the kickoff show is the Battle Royal, the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. That's what we normally see. Sometimes they have it right at the beginning of WrestleMania, but very often it's been in the pre-show. And I think one of the matches that, if they did have a kickoff show, probably would have had a match, would have been the tag team turmoil match for on the women's side for the women's tag team championships. Now, I'm going to list off some of these tag teams. So we have Lana and Naomi versus Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose versus the Riot Squad, which is Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott, Natalya and Tamina versus Billie Kay and Carmella. Now, as somebody who's been following women's wrestling in particular for quite some time, absolutely none of these tag teams, apart from the Riot Squad, make any sense to me. I couldn't even tell you who I think is going to win and who would be a good competitor for night 2 when they compete for the tag team titles. Do any of these names stand out to you at all, Matt?
No, not really. You're right. There's not, a real tag team besides the Riot Squad, which may be an issue. I don't know why they split up the Iconics. They could have been in this match, but I think a lot of people are expecting the Riot Squad to win. They've been a lot of fan favorites for a lot of people, so that might be the winner for that match.
Definitely. And one thing that I want to mention about night 1 is, we've been seeing a lot of celebrities come into WrestleMania over the last few years. Like, this is not anything new, but now we're going to have one competing in a match. We're going to have Bad Bunny with Damian Priest, of course, versus The Miz and Morrison. Now, how do you feel about having celebrities not only, it's fine to have them around the ring, but to actually compete in a match? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Going back I am the NXT guy, and I was very, very supportive of Pat McAfee wrestling against Adam Cole. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, any celebrity that goes into wrestling, if they work hard at it and if they respect it, then by all means, they are welcomed. Bad Bunny, who's also a very big fan of wrestling, apparently has been putting in many, many hours weekly at the Performance Center in preparation for this match. If he does a good job, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point with Pat McAfee. I mean, I really had my doubts before I watched that match. I knew that he was a big fan of the WWE and wrestling in general. I think he actually has a wrestling ring in his home, which is incredible. Yeah. And he did put on a great performance with Adam Cole. I thought, he really exceeded my expectations. I'm always a little bit leery when I see celebrities try and get in the ring, because you never know, right? You never know what kind of work they're putting in behind the scenes. But to your point, yes, if Bad Bunny is putting in the work and trying his best to compete in the ring and going to put on a good show, you can't really hate on that. And there's 3 other matches that I'm going to give honorable mentions to. We have the New Day Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods versus AJ Styles and Osmos. No,
I'm not sure.
I can't even pronounce his name. That's how much we don't even hear about him. For the WWE Raw Tag Team Championships. Now, this is Omos. Let's call him that. This is his debut. He's debuting at WrestleMania, which is pretty incredible. And he's a big guy. Like, he's a big guy to get in the ring. And oftentimes we see these big wrestlers get in there and they're either very dynamic or they really fall flat. So I'm not really sure what to expect from him, seeing as we haven't really seen him do much. But do you have any thoughts on his performance tonight?
Almost. He's been around a little bit in NXT, although I've never seen his matches. He will be a big talking point if he does do well or doesn't, maybe. But I think a lot of people are talking about AJ Styles in that match. He could, if he wins, become a Grand Slam champion in WWE, which is kind of crazy to think about since he's been, that TNA guy or New Japan guy for so long that he's, held all these titles in WWE.
Definitely. And then, of course, the following match is Braun Strowman versus Shane McMahon, which we were supposed to see at Fastlane, and then they pulled it at the last minute. It's going to be a steel cage match, but let's be honest here. Anything with Shane McMahon, you have to assume that there's going to be some sort of metal involved. So I'm not really surprised, and I think it should be like a decent match. Like, at first I wasn't really too keen on it, but those two always put on a good show separately. So together, I think it should be a decent match.
Yeah, the build-up, wasn't good. It wasn't good, but again, Shane McMahon, Braun Strowman, they're probably going to pull off something crazy. So that's enough to look forward to.
Definitely. And then lastly, we have Cesaro and Seth Rollins. And speaking of build-up, I haven't really been following the storyline too much. So I can't say that I'm extremely excited for it. But again, two very strong wrestlers. Seth Rollins came back fairly recently. So, it's good placement. Like, if it stays as a mid-card match, I think it should do decently well.
Yeah, Cesaro and Seth Rollins, very good. And, I'm very happy for Cesaro. His first ever singles WrestleMania match. I'm sure he will deliver.
Yeah, that's true. Because last year he was with Sheamus as the Bar, and they were, I think they were actually competing for the tag team titles, if I'm not mistaken. But you're right. This is going to be his first singles match. So we're going to move on to night 2. So of course, night 2 is action packed, in my opinion, anyway. And again, we have 7 matches. What are some of the ones that you're looking forward to tomorrow night?
I think obviously the big main event, the triple threat Universal Championship match between Roman Reigns, Edge, and now Daniel Bryan. 3 guys, definitely Hall of Fame in the future. Oh, Edge already is a Hall of Famer, but they're gonna put on a show. Daniel Bryan, second time really forcing his way into a main event triple threat match. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm biased towards Edge. I loved Edge. I was that person. I don't know about you, but I was that person when he came out in the Royal Rumble last year, when he came back after 9 years. I leaped to my feet because I was so happy. Yeah. You can't discount the kind of wrestler that he is. And I honestly think that he really has a chance at taking home the championship tonight. I really do.
For sure, yeah.
And another championship match that we have is the tag team match, which was billed just before that for the on the women's side. Nia Jax versus Shayna Baszler with Reginald, of course, the sommelier. And then the winner of the tag team turmoil match, which is tonight. So I guess we're going to see what comes out of that. In my opinion, I think if we're just looking at the momentum and where things have been going, I don't really see these 2 ladies dropping the title. I think that they've been pretty good. They don't like each other. I think they actually hate each other, but they've been really good together. So I don't really see them dropping the titles to a couple of wrestlers that aren't actually a tag team, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. If Riot Squad wins, maybe they will pull it off, but otherwise, I think it's a wrap for Shayna and Nia.
Yeah, definitely. And then one of the other matches that we have that is for a championship is Asuka, who is the Raw Women's Champion, versus Rhea Ripley. I mean, these are two former NXT women. So what do you think about this matchup?
I'm really excited for Rhea Ripley as somebody who, again, has watched NXT a lot. She is going to be a star, and this is going to be a star-making performance for her. So her transition onto the Raw and main roster is going to be a good starting point, winning at WrestleMania, the Raw Women's Championship.
Definitely. I think regardless of who comes out champion here, I think it's a win-win in my opinion. I think this is going to be, and this is billed as the first match. So again, we're starting night 2 with a very fiery type of match, which I love. Another match that we have here, which I had to look this up because I really wasn't sure what this meant, but Big E, who is the Intercontinental Champion, is going up against Apollo Crews in a Nigerian drum fight. Okay, when I looked up, I saw that Nigerian drum fight. I was like, come again? It in essence is a hardcore match. So it's going to be a hardcore match. So what do you think about these two going up against each other in a Nigerian drum fight?
Putting the drums aside, I think Big E and Apollo Crews are two guys that really deserve this spot. Especially Big E, he's on his way to be a big player on the SmackDown side. Put in that work, done pretty well as Intercontinental Champion. I'm happy to see them on the WrestleMania card, drums or not.
Absolutely. And Richard on our chat here is asking, is anyone keen on the new Apollo Crews character? Now, for anybody who may not know what that means, he very recently changed his character, and now he is more, I guess if I'm not mistaken, it's more of a Nigerian type of character that he is presenting himself, which I guess is the reasoning for the name of the match. And I mean, like, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with when they change the way that their character is going and it makes sense, then I'm okay with it. And I think in this case, he plays the character so well and he's so confident in himself. I think it's going to work in his favor. I think it actually works better than his former character. I don't know if you've seen him recently and can give your thoughts on what you think about this character change.
Yeah, in an interview somewhere, I'm not sure where, Apollo had stated that beforehand, he didn't really have much of a, persona or a character. So this is a good change for him to really express himself with a different gimmick. I could leave the accent though, but otherwise, I think he's done a good job with this new Nigerian gimmick. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've seen the whole accent thing. I mean, Kofi Kingston, when he first debuted, he was Jamaican, and when the crowd found out that he wasn't actually from Jamaica, they had to get rid of it right away because it didn't make any sense after that. So yeah, as long as he keeps it up, I think he'll be fine. Another match that we have here, which I've told our viewers last week that I'm really excited about, and I'm biased because I'm from Montreal, Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn with Logan Paul. So I know that we've seen this matchup many, many times before. We've seen them. This rivalry has been ongoing for quite some time. Do you think this is something that should have been in the WrestleMania card, or do you think this is something that could have waited?
There's a lot of history between them, Ring of Honor, PWG, NXT, and whatnot. This isn't, their most emotional or story-driven storyline. So, if they get on the card, they're on the WrestleMania card, they get the one-on-one singles match. I'm very happy for them. And, the Logan Paul thing, of course, it brings eyes to them. Then, it's fine or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm kind of indifferent about it, but they're in the middle of the card. So again, it's placed well. If they keep it in the middle of the card, I think they should be fine. And another match that is also kind of mid-card, if you will, is Riddle versus Sheamus. And Riddle is the United States champion, going up against Sheamus, who has been there for quite some time. So is this a situation where you think the title is going to change hands, or do you think Riddle is going to keep the championship?
It could change hands, but I think, the people there are very behind Riddle. He's always getting a lot of TV time backstage or in a ring. But for the match itself, it's two very hard-hitting guys who are going to put it all out there on WrestleMania. But I think my prediction is Riddle is going to retain.
Definitely. And I think that's definitely a possibility. I mean, I, like you, most likely, I watched Riddle from the time he was in NXT, and he just exploded there. And I think ever since he got onto the main rosters, if you will, he has done a great job. So I really would not be surprised if the bro kept his title. So other than that, I mean, we know that there's going to be a crowd at WrestleMania, and we've heard from some people on our chat here, like Steve, who said that the weather is not very good. But what do you think? What are you expecting in terms of theatrics tonight? Do you think that it's going to be very similar to what we saw last year in terms of more promos and more creative in terms of like the filming of matches? Or do you think we're going to go back to a standard format that we've seen for WrestleMania?
I'm not sure. I did see some pictures on social media that they had the cardboard cutouts there, like where they had in the Super Bowl, filling the seats. Maybe I don't know if they're going to be facing that way, or the camera's going to be facing that way, or towards the entrance. But it's going to be a WrestleMania. It's going to be pyro. It's going to be lights. It's going to be drones, I think, for this year. Yeah, I think they're going to go all out. Nevertheless.
Definitely. And, I was actually thinking about this before. WrestleMania is normally the time where we get some surprises that usually we're not expecting at all, because they haven't been on TV in forever, or we're under the impression that their contract has run out. Are you thinking that somebody is going to make a surprise appearance? And if so, who do you think that would be?
There are good chances. There are two nights that could be a surprise on either one. I did read somewhere that Becky Lynch could be making a return after being gone for a year for her pregnancy and having a child. It could be there, could be not there. Personally, I hope we see maybe a past wrestler, maybe like a John Cena type of character. Oh, we'll see.
Yeah, I was speaking to one of my friends today, and he thought that Brock Lesnar was going to possibly make a return, which I don't necessarily think would happen. But I mean, right, it's WrestleMania and anything's possible, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Well, Matt, it was such a pleasure having you on with me. Thank you so much for joining me and giving us this preview for WrestleMania and going over NXT with me. And I know that you'll be watching, and hopefully you'll get to join us again sometime soon.
Yes, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. That was Matt McFarlin, who, like me, is a Slam contributor who normally gives us his reports for NXT. So thank you so much, Matt, for joining us. I really appreciate that. It's always nice to get somebody else's opinion from, a different perspective, or, if I've missed something. So it's always nice talking with people about wrestling, because this is the nature of the podcast, right? So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And we only have about a few minutes left now. And I want to talk about something that I saw this week that I'm not okay with. I'm really not okay with, actually. And I kind of touched on it a bit with Matt about character changes and how they work and how they don't work. So let me know if over the course of however long you've been watching wrestling, if there's ever been a character change that you think either really worked or really didn't work. Now, I was reading a story this week, and it said that there were reports that The Fiend was going to most likely evolve his character at WrestleMania and slowly shift him back to his former self. Now, I don't know if that means that he is going to shift back to Bray Wyatt, Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt, or if that means he's going to shift back to himself the way that he was before he even left and went off of TV for a little while, where he was more like that swamp character, right, with Sister Abigail and his bird pants. Can't forget about the bird pants. So I don't know that this is something that's going to work well in his favor. This man has been wrestling for a long time. He is clearly good at what he does. Anything that they've given him, he has succeeded with. Not to mention that he's a legacy in his own right. I mean, he has wrestling in his blood. So he could do anything that he wants, and I think we're all going to kind of buy into it, except if you're John, right? Because we know John doesn't really like the Fiend character with the fire and him being lit on fire anyway. But I think that would work as a disadvantage to him if we saw him revert back to the Swamp character, if that's what we're going with. I liked that character, and I think he really succeeded in taking that character and really running with it. But I think when he came back and he was the Fiend, whether that was the Fiend or Bray Wyatt in the Firefly Funhouse, I thought that the difference in person that we had between two of them, and we never knew which one was going to come out, right? We never knew if we were going to get Bray Wyatt, we were going to get the Fiend. And I think that's so exciting. And that's what wrestling is supposed to be. It's supposed to be exciting. And I think that that character is really him. And he loves playing that character. With the addition of Alexa Bliss, I think that's been amazing. And I think it brings this kind of psychological aspect to wrestling and to the WWE that we don't always see all the time. So I don't know that I want to see him go back there. I'm really hoping it doesn't happen this weekend, at least. I think I think the Fiend needs to continue. I mean, it needs to continue. There's no reason to stop it now. He's on a tear. He's going in the right direction. I mean, he is definitely going to hold another title at some point if he keeps that character. So, I mean, we'll see. But that's just my thoughts. Dan says, when Lex Luger was in the WWE in 1993, he went from being the most egotistical person in history to an All-American literally overnight. You're right. Yeah. And I can't say that I love Lex Luger either. I did not think he was a good wrestler. I'm sorry to everybody who thinks that he was a good wrestler. I just personally didn't like that. But that's a fair point. It's definitely a fair point. Richard says, Sergeant Slaughter in 1990. Yeah, that too. I love Sergeant Slaughter. I definitely miss seeing him around. And speaking of people that I miss seeing around, that Matt kind of touched on, Becky Lynch. How awesome would it be to have the man return to that women's division? Don't you think they need that? I mean, we haven't really seen somebody like Charlotte around either, right? And Charlotte and Becky, they've always had a great rivalry, or when they were friendly on TV, they've always worked so well together. And I thought that they were, kind of the leaders in that division before Becky left. And I think to have somebody like Becky back would be amazing. I think, she is somebody that is at the forefront, whether she's there or not, whether she's at home being a mother or whether she's in the ring. I think she's always going to be at the forefront of that division. And to add somebody in there like Ronda Rousey, which, by the way, Ronda Rousey, as I think I touched on before, still has a contract with the WWE. So hint, hint, we might see her there. And I did see her training in the ring with Ariel Toombs. And for all of you who don't know who that is, that's Roddy Piper's daughter. So maybe she's in line to make a comeback. I don't know. I know that would be a moment for me, very much like Edge, that would make me leap off the couch if those two, or even if just one of them showed up. That would be amazing. But anyway, we will see. I am going to leave you guys with one last thought that actually occurred to me this week when I was listening to a podcast. And just, to put it out there, all the podcasts that I listen to are all wrestling podcasts, because I want to learn as much as I can about the people that we see on TV, the people behind the scenes. And one of the podcasts that I listen to is called Insight with Chris Van Vliet, one of my fellow Canadians. And a couple of weeks ago, he had Eric Bischoff on to talk about a variety of things. One of them was this Wednesday night war that we have going on, which is not going to happen anymore, right? Because now NXT is moving to Tuesdays. And he said that he never thought that it actually was a war to begin with. Because I think everybody has this expectation that these wars are supposed to be explosive. And we did see that with the Monday Night Wars back in the day. And these Wednesday Night Wars are nothing like that. And he said that he didn't think that it was a war to begin with because AEW's top talent that they put on Dynamite every Wednesday never went up against NXT's top talent because the NXT brand never consistently put their top roster on TV. Let that sink in for a second. NXT didn't always put their top talent on TV every single week. So he's arguing that that's the reason why it wasn't ever a war, and that's why NXT's ratings suffered. Now, we're going to see in the next coming weeks whether or not that's actually true, because if their ratings go up because now they're on a Tuesday and AEW stays the same, what do you think that says? I don't know. I never really thought it was a war to begin with anyway. The numbers they never even came close to each other. For as long as I can remember, AEW dominated the ratings. And now they're starting to come a little bit closer. So we will see what happens there. But like I said, all I know is now I have to have a second full-time job of watching wrestling every single day. So like, think about it. Monday is Raw. Tuesday, we have NXT. Wednesday, AEW. Thursday, Impact. And Friday, we have SmackDown. It's a lot of wrestling to watch, guys. And I hope you guys will join me and watch all this wrestling with me because I really do enjoy coming on the podcast, whether it's like this or whether it's with John, and we get to go over the stuff that happened in the week. And I love seeing all of your comments. I love sharing all of your comments with everybody on the podcast. It really helps. It really helps me kind of tell a different story, if you will. And I really appreciate that you guys joined me. I know that this weekend is going to be crazy. And I don't know about you, but as soon as I log off of here, I am going to watch the Wrestlemania kickoff show. So we're just about that time now. That hour flew by very, very quickly. But such is life when it's Mania week, right, guys? So thank you again so much for joining me. I will be back next week. John, hopefully, will be back next week, and he'll tell us all about his book signing, I'm sure, and I cannot wait to hear all about it. And I will bring you all of the wrestling news as usual. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, and I'll catch you on the flip side.